everybody had to just pick an instrument and learn it
Uh-huh.
for, music class. And I chose saxophone. And, that was the song that I liked that I learned. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm done with this. I'm going to go back to playing guitar.
My name's Adam, and this is all about you. Our podcast is about your journey in music and how you got to where you are now.
Amazing.
Cool. Well, let's first find out, where were you born and raised?
I'm from Madison, Wisconsin.
Madison, Wisconsin. Right on.
Yeah.
What was it like
Oh,
growing up
you
there?
betcha.
A lot of
Yeah, but
cheese.
oh yeah, lots of cheese, lots of Packers and Badgers, and
There you go.
um, you know, all the good Wisconsin things.
What was like what was it like there? Was there a lot of music, or what was the scene like?
Yeah, there's a solid music scene in Madison and Milwaukee and just around the state. I guess most notably to me, Justin Vernon of Bon Iver is from Eau Claire,
Mhm.
Wisconsin, which I've been to Eau Claire, but that's further north. But he's been a huge role model, and I've been a huge fan of his for a long time.
Yeah, he's an amazing artist. That's awesome. I know Carly Hansen is from there. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Carly Hansen is? No way. I didn't
She's from
realize that.
Wisconsin. I don't know exactly what part. I can't remember. I've had her on the show a couple times, but I can't recall off the top of my head whereabouts. But
Oh,
she's
that's
from
awesome.
Wisco as well.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that. She's amazing. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
incredible artist. She was actually the first podcast episode we ever published, and we've had her on a couple times. She's
Oh,
great.
no way. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
But
Very
cool.
cool.
So Wisconsin, like, how'd you get into music? Tell me about that.
Oh man, I've just loved music my whole life. I was definitely one of those families that just embraced music. My dad always had like a big collection of music. Grew up hearing music at church and lots of like Beatles and Beach Boys and like 90s alts like Oasis and Counting Crows and Dave Matthews and all that stuff growing up.
Mhm.
And maybe fourth grade started taking guitar lessons. Had a knee injury in high school and started playing guitar more. And then, college and post college was a lot of like cover songs for YouTube and starting to write my own stuff. So that's how I got kind of got started.
Right. Were you in sports or something prior, like when in high school?
Yeah, I played basketball and football, and
Okay.
I always loved sports growing up. I didn't play in college or obviously not professionally or anything like that.
Mhm.
But um, I just sports was my thing growing up, and I figured out later than a lot of people that music was my thing, and now I'm
Sure.
like, oh, I was a music guy this whole time. So,
But the knee injury kind of gave you a little nudge.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I couldn't play basketball, which was, I tore my lateral meniscus in my right knee, and
Oh, ouch.
I had to sit out like half of a season. And I was just kind of stuck in my parents' basement with a guitar. And that's so I picked it up and, fell in love with it and have been in love with it ever since.
That's incredible. Fourth grade. You said fourth grade. You took lessons though. Was that guitar the first instrument you learned, or were you in piano as
Yeah,
a young kid, or anything like that?
I, I think technically the first instrument, yeah, I guess guitar was the first that I learned in maybe fourth grade. And then I took saxophone
Okay.
in school and got good enough to play the Forrest Gump theme and then quit saxophone and just did guitar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just went for that. Why Forrest Gump? Just a huge fan of the film,
I
and
think it was like just a simple enough song to play that it
okay.
was like I think it was in fifth or sixth grade at my grade school. Everybody had to just pick an instrument and learn it
Uh-huh.
for music class, and I chose saxophone. And that was the song that I liked that I learned, and then I was like, okay, I think I'm done with this. I'm gonna go back to playing guitar.
So you didn't take sax in like middle school or high school at all?
No, not
Just
really.
dropped it. Dropped it
Honestly
after Forrest
haven't
Gump.
yeah, haven't touched one since I learned a terrible rendition of the Forrest Gump theme.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
When did so you said I mean, you really got a nudge in guitar when you hurt your knee. Was that when you started trying to learn like cover songs, or like between the gap between fourth grade and then were you playing at all, or is it kind of just like come and go as it
Kind of
was?
a little bit, just like learning a little bit here and there. I remember the first song that I learned in my lesson was "Always Be My Baby" by Mariah Carey.
That's an interesting one.
I mean, it's still one of my favorite songs, but like such a ridiculous song to choose for your first guitar song because
Right.
it's basically just a lick at the beginning of the song that I loved. But that, I mean, that does show kind of what my journey with music has been, in that it just, if if there's something that I like, I want to figure out what I like about it and then try it. And I've kind of sort of taught myself in that way. I didn't go to school for music, and I didn't have a lot of, I took, I guess, piano lessons in high school too, but everything else has been like YouTube and just trying stuff and figuring it out.
Well, I mean, man, you've accomplished quite a bit just going that route. I mean, that's incredible. Did
Yeah,
you,
I'm
sorry,
grateful.
go ahead. Oh, yeah. I was going to say, you said you were doing covers and putting them up on YouTube. Like, how old were you when you were doing that?
That was in college. So the
Okay.
first one I did was Lollipop by Lil Wayne. It
That's
just like
awesome.
like I discovered auto tune in GarageBand and just did a terrible Lollipop cover, but my friends liked it, and it obviously it sounded in tune and was fun. So I just fell in love with doing covers, and I think that's how I learned um song structure and what it feels like to play a cool song. And that kind of turned into, I want to start writing some. And did a YouTube channel, would cover Drake and Miguel, and like some country songs. I was kind of all over the place
Hmm.
with the genres that I did. And I still feel like I'm discovering myself in that way, but I loved doing that. And um you know I was always the guy who would just play cover songs at bonfires or at parties or anything like that. I was just always looking for an excuse to have a jam session for a sing along and that kind of thing.
Did you ever play with bands, or was it mainly just you playing guitar and just doing a lot of covers?
I've played with bands. I'm lucky enough that I've had a band in LA that I've played with on and off. I had bands that I played with in Wisconsin. I would say I haven't played with bands as much as some other artists. I do a lot more acoustic shows, and um I do electronic shows now too. So I've played with bands less than I would like to have. I have less experience playing with bands than I wish that I had at this point, but I'm writing a project now that is geared towards that. So
Cool.
hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah, it wasn't like, but you weren't like in a band, like in college, like a college.
No,
It was more just
no, not
solo
really.
thing.
Honestly, more than bands, I had kind of an interesting trajectory because I was more a part of the hip hop scene in Madison, Wisconsin, than I was a part of the singer songwriter scene, because I loved writing like R&B hip hop music.
Hmm.
And so I was in with that crowd, and I would always be the guy who was part of a set of hip hop artists that were on throughout the course of an event or a concert. And I was the guy who would come out and play like acoustic covers, or play just like bust out a guitar after everybody had been rapping all night. And that was kind of my thing early on.
That's cool. When did you start writing songs?
Um, I wrote my first song my senior year of high school. It was terrible, but it was a song.
Hmm.
And then I wrote a lot more terrible music after that. And it gradually got better. I put out like some albums, and I put out a lot of music in like college and right after college. But I ended up taking it all down once I like felt like I found my voice after moving out to LA. So that
Okay.
stuff is just collecting dust on a hard drive now.
What'd you go to school for if you didn't go for music? Did you go for video editing? I read that you worked for the Onion.
Yeah, so I went to University of Wisconsin Madison, and I studied history and comm arts. I didn't get my
Oh,
major
okay.
in comm arts. I got a major in history. I just wanted to get a bachelor's and graduate in 4, because I felt pretty confident I was going to work in video or music or some combination of the two. My dad runs a video production company out of Madison, Wisconsin, and I was
Oh,
already working
rad.
there. I was already working there in college, and I ended up working there for a couple years after college, and then moved to Chicago. And yeah, I worked at Comcast Sportsnet in the Onion in Chicago, which was really fun.
That's
I just
cool.
love Chicago. But
Yeah. And those wasn't the Onion
yeah,
started by some guys from Wisconsin any like that went to I think they
yeah.
yeah, I believe so.
I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I think it started in Madison as like a free newspaper.
Yeah, I believe
But,
it did. And then it kind of moved to New York. It got big. I mean, obviously real quick, but I
right,
think it started in Wisconsin.
right. That sounds right. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Okay. I didn't know if you
And
had
it's
like it was a tie, so you wanted to work there due to that fact, but guess not.
no, no, um, no, I just loved the Onion, and they had, they had been a newspaper for so long, and right around the era when I was in Chicago was when they were like a year or two fresh with doing hilarious video content for their website.
Uh-huh.
And so I was an assistant video editor. I was assisting the editors, mostly just backing up footage from shoots. And like, I wasn't writing hilarious headlines or anything like that. I was just kind of a production assistant, but it was a hilarious job in that it was in a very intense work environment, but you're also, you know, having an intense work process over the
Hmm.
funniest pieces that you'll ever
Yeah,
read
what
or
a
see.
cool environment to be in, I'm sure. Yeah,
It
that's like
was.
working. Yeah, I could imagine just working for something as hilarious as The Onion. That would be pretty.
Totally.
That'd be pretty cool. So were you writing music all while you were working there, and like how did the music kind of overtake the video production?
I was. So I was working at the Onion, doing a free unpaid internship there, and then I was working a paid gig at Comcast Sportsnet, and the hours were kind of like 3 p.m. to like 1 a.m. at Comcast, and it was like 4 days a week, and then Onion was like 2 days a week, and I was doing music largely really late at night or early in the morning,
Hmm.
and that was what I looked forward to in my days, and I wasn't spending as much time on it as I wanted to. And I ended up reading this book called The War of Art. I always
Hmm.
screw it up. It's The War of Art or The War on Art. I think it's The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Hmm.
And the big thesis of that book is like, if you if you have a passion for something, you only live once, you should do it. And two, it's like, if you want to be treated as a professional, you have to treat yourself as a professional first to get good enough to be treated as a professional by other people. And that was a big light bulb moment for me, like, oh, I need to start taking this seriously if I want to make music for my job, because nobody's going to hand that to me, you know.
Hmm. So did you move to
So
Los Angeles like after reading that where you're like, okay, like obviously music is what I'm really, really passionate about. I need to get to Los
yeah.
Angeles or where it's happening. And why'd you choose LA over like New York or Nashville? Or,
Yeah, I quit my job that week,
oh
after
wow.
reading that. Yeah, I quit my job that week after reading the book because I saw so clearly what I needed to do, and I was also just not happy with my job there. I knew it wasn't where I was supposed to be.
Mhm.
So I moved home for 6 months to save up money. I had a few friends who were already out in LA. My friend Quincy, my friend Nathan, and I became friends with this guy Steven Swartz, who had a big hit called Bullet Train at the time. Now has an artist project called Steven, and he's one of my closest friends. All three of them are some of my closest friends. But they were living in the Hollywood Towers, actually, what the Tower of Terror is based on.
Oh,
Um,
rad.
they were living in the Hollywood Towers, and I came out to visit, and I was like, okay, I got to be out here. This is amazing.
Okay.
And drove out, 30-hour drive, no plan whatsoever as to how to make it a career, and I've just, made it work. Did 6 months, ran out of money, moved in with them and couch surfed. They surprised me by turning a hallway into a bedroom with like a little twin mattress, and I lived on a mattress in a hallway for 2.5 years and wrote demos out of a walk-in closet
Oh
until I
my
could get a book
gosh.
deal.
That's
Yeah,
incredible. That's wow. Talk about passion. You weren't you weren't kidding, huh? Like quit your
yeah,
job, like you went to like from, something stable to like now you're living in a, hallway.
totally. Yeah, and it's exactly what it sounds like. We had like a curtain up, but yeah, I was living in a hallway for like 2.5 years, and it was a nice like 3 bedroom house. So it's, in ways I wasn't roughing it, but in other ways, it like psychologically not having your own space and like, um, you know, just feeling like you don't have a home for that long
Sure.
of a time. It's difficult psychologically. But that was such a special era too, because Steven Swartz was living in the house, Coda was living in the house, Nathan, who managed Krewella and Steven was in the house, and my friend Quincy was in the house, and they're all super special artists, and we were all growing together and learning from each other. So it was like a weird artistic incubation period that I'm so grateful for, and it was so much fun.
What would you say like the first little victory was, or what kind of got you to the next level in your career?
I think the moment where I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm getting somewhere was when I wrote Tipsy Love, which was my first single release for my artist project, because
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing that demo. I mean, I had been writing so many demos and was so desperate to write something that anyone was excited about. And I wrote that song, and pretty much everyone I played that demo for was like, this is amazing. You need to write more like this. And really what it was I had found my sound and my style, and the limitations that made something sound like me.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of digging to figure that out, but I really do feel like that was a gateway song that kind of led to so much other music for me. So that was a huge moment for me for sure.
With that song, what led you to getting the BMG deal? Was it pretty soon after that, or?
So after I wrote that song, that was maybe 6 months or so in. Actually, I had written that when I first moved to LA, and when I moved in with the guys, and I was living in the hallway, I played them that demo, and I ended up writing a bunch more songs in that style, which was basically just stripped acoustic songs. Um, uh, a less is more type production. I had been doing, hip hop and R&B and like overproducing my demos up until that point, and it really became about stripping things to guitar and vocal and just focusing on great songs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I just wrote a ton of demos on guitar, super stripped, and just tried to write the best songs that I could. And the demos that came out of that era, the best ones, put them on a private SoundCloud, sent them around to Industry Connects, got connected with my manager at the time, Jack Minahan, who's a great guy. And he kind of took me to the rounds to the publishers, and ended up getting an offer from BMG and signing with Jeremiah Thomas there, who's now at Island Records, who's a homie and an amazing guy as well.
That's awesome. I did hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, like labels and like publishing companies, like for anyone listening that like wants to get into that industry, don't you have to really submit songs that aren't released? Like you wouldn't put those out on like, I'm not sure about this, but you wouldn't throw those songs up on like Spotify, right? And then try to pitch those around. It would be more like you wouldn't put the songs out. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, like should you send label songs that you have out already?
Right.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
yeah.
I think I mean a big label can kind of throw gasoline on a fire. So if you're a Lil Nas X and you just wrote a song called Old Town Road, and it's starting to blow up, and they look at your numbers and they see it's blowing up, yeah, then you might get signed that way.
Sure.
Even if you put your song out, I would say that's a rare case. Like a song going viral, that can happen, but I would say more often than not, the way to do it is figure out your sound and figure out how you sound different by writing a lot, and get those really special records together. And when you feel confident that you have a special, even just like a handful of demos that are really special that show where you're headed,
Uh-huh.
then the right people will kind of find you. You can, what I did was put it on a private playlist, send that to anyone and everyone that you know in the industry until somebody catches wind of it who can help you get connected properly,
Okay.
which is what happened to me. But if I had sent Jack Minahan my demos a year before I had figured out what my sound and my thing was, he probably would have passed, because those demos weren't strong until I figured out what my style was, so a lot of people aren't as ready as they think they are, unfortunately, to have that moment happen. And really, when you have your sound and you have something special that stands out, the right people find you because they see the value in it.
I was just curious because you said you had it on a private SoundCloud account, and somebody else's. And when I've interviewed, I forgot who it was off the top of my head, but they mentioned that too. Like people, you're better off sending stuff that isn't out. I mean, obviously, I've chatted with a lot of people that have had that viral success, or had a song on TikTok that just blows up, or a song on Spotify that gets playlisted. Then it's like, you know, all the labels are like, hey, you know, what's going on? Because you've already have achieved something there. But if you're trying to sell yourself to these, to, you know, BMG or, you know, Warner Chappell or whoever, you just hearing that you had it on a private SoundCloud account is interesting to me. It wasn't like you
Yeah,
had
for
them out
sure.
on Spotify and you're like, here's my Spotify link. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And that was it. That was the deal that I got, to clarify, was a publishing deal and not a
Uh-huh.
record deal,
Sure.
because several of the songs were great pitch records,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not, if you're pitching records to top 40 artists to place records as a songwriter, they have to be on release, or at least that's the idea.
Right.
So if you're trying to get a publishing deal, that's the route to go, is to send records that are unreleased and that they can pitch to artists.
Other artists.
But if you're looking for a record deal, I still think that's pretty true. Is sending records that are unreleased, because they'll want to be a part of the rollout more often than not. But I also think it's okay to release records that you love and build your fan base, and establish your brand on your socials, and start cultivating your community and the culture of what your project is about. I think it's good to show people, hey, I've got momentum on this already.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is throw gasoline on this fire that I've created, as
Sure.
opposed to, like, want to invest hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in this project that nobody's heard except you.
Right.
It
Right.
does happen. If, like, great A&Rs have great ears, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll hear something and know it's special, but that's not, I would say that's more rare.
Sure, sure. That's interesting. Well, speaking of pitching songs, I know you made it onto Songland and you
And
won. You had, you know, a One Republic record, like, which is amazing. Like, how far down the line was that? Like, had you pitched a bunch of songs? I know you had some success and had gotten people to pick up your record prior to that show, correct?
right. I would say Songland was like an amazing boost at a time
Okay.
when I needed one. It was just an amazing experience. One story I love to tell is that when I was living in that hallway in that artist commune house,
Mm-hmm.
um, one of my mentors at the time said, I think your song structure could be better. You should, pick a song to dissect and learn the song structure of. And I chose Counting Stars by One Republic. And
Interesting.
so, in that era, when I was living in a hallway, I was literally in this closet where I was writing all these demos, cutting up Counting Stars, and just like marveling at what an amazing pop production and lyric and top line it is, and trying to figure out why it's so great. And then cut to, you know, 3-4 years later, I'm pitching a record to Ryan Tedder and One Republic, and they pick it for their album, which is crazy.
That's insane. I know. I was looking at it just like on YouTube numbers, like 18 million plays on just like the lyric video and stuff. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah,
so cool to have that kind of
yeah,
recognition for something you wrote. I mean, wow.
yeah. I'm so grateful for that whole experience. Definitely one of those holy shit, surreal, like once in a lifetime things that I mean, I got lucky. It was the right record for them, and it all went smoothly. And I co-wrote that song. I want to shout out Kevin Fisher, Jinte, and Andrew Wells. Those were the guys who I wrote the original demo with. Kevin Fisher is an amazing writer, and Jin and Andrew are as well, and are amazing producers. So, shout out to them, because that song wouldn't be what it is without them too.
That's cool. I'll get to that one because I have a couple more questions about that. But I'm curious to know what was the first record that you had, you know, picked up by someone, and what was that experience like? I mean, that must have been a big moment for you.
Actually, it was very, very early on.
Oh,
In that era when I was writing hip hop, and just putting out albums in college.
okay.
I wrote a song called Bad Boy, which was just like hip hop drums and some chorus about I'm a bad boy, I do bad things. It was like, just totally not my brand now, but it was a good chorus. And
Right.
it had a cool like hip hop drum pattern and like bass movement and everything. And actually, Beanie Siegel, who's a famous rapper who like
Mm-hmm.
came up with Jay-Z, um, took that chorus and had somebody reproduce it. And I was on a Beanie Siegel record in like the early 2000s.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that was my first like placement. And then I didn't get another one for like 4 years or something like that. But um, you know, early on, I think some of my first placements were with Krewella.
Okay.
Because my roommate Nathan Lim was managing them at the time, and I got to be friends with them. So I wrote with them a lot early on, and we wrote Broken Record together. If you hear that post chorus and that drop with the like distorted vocal, that's my voice on that one.
Really?
Yeah, so that was an exciting thing because I was a Cruella fan, and they were,
Hmm.
you know, electronic music stars, and they still are.
Sure. Yeah, they're huge.
Totally.
That's cool. I didn't realize too that sometimes when you get a cut like that, they use, you as a like a voice on the record, or get to play on the record at all, or is that kind of rare?
It does. Yeah, it does happen. You know, it's a case by case thing. I think more and more now that my project's getting more established, I do, you know, try to have my voice be mostly on my stuff. But you know, I work with this guy Jake Miller, and our voices kind of have a similar timbre.
Hmm.
Um, so he'll use my background vocals or post chorus vocals, and if they're a great take and the magic is there, you know, we'll figure it out so he can just use those. And like most people can't tell the difference if it's the two voices that sound similar. So
Sure.
um, so yeah, and then on the Cruella one, I was singing in the room with them what I heard for the post chorus on Broken Record. They're like, get in the booth, and then we distorted it and pitched it down, and you know, and it sounds crazy now. But that's kind of how I work. You know, I hear melodies, and I'll record in the melodies just as gibberish what I'm hearing, and a lot of times the gibberish vocal is the cool thing that you just kind of distort
Hmm.
and manipulate the audio until it sounds unique, and um you know, it becomes an instrument in that way.
Sure, that's really cool. What when you got the show, going back to Songline real quick, like what was it
Yeah,
like hearing that you're on that, going to get that chance to perform? And did you know it was going to be with One Republic when you got, picked?
I didn't I didn't know, but when I ended up on the One Republic episode, I was so pumped. I mean, that was that was what I was really hoping to be on. I was really hoping to get to pitch to them, because when I was sending my records, you got to send 2 records in, I think, at the time for the
Uh-huh.
show, and my hope was to end up getting to pitch to Ryan and One Republic.
That's cool. Yeah,
But
like that full
I mean,
circle moment that you talked about, breaking down that
totally,
song, and that's so cool. And then Jason
yeah.
Evigan was the kind of replaced Ryan Tedder on the show at that point. And he's a great guy. I had a chance to interview him and his wife for his project Elephant Heart. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Love
Um,
Jason and love Elephant Heart. So sick.
so cool. Yeah. So I got a chance to chat with them. And then I rewatched your episode because I was like, I gotta remember, I saw that you're on it with One Republic. And I'm like, okay, I want to go refresh and watch it, because my wife and I would watch it on all the time with our kids and Hulu and
Right.
stuff. We'd watch it on Hulu. And I went back and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot that Jason was on this episode too. So that was like so cool. And then to win, you get the song cut, like that's so cool.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the coolest things that's ever happened. Jason's such a good guy, and I'm such a huge fan of his work. Like, he's just a monster producer and
Oh
a
yeah.
super, super sweet guy. Like, he couldn't be a sweeter guy. So you know, getting to um him being on the episode that I was on was super fun, and um yeah,
It was like an
just
added bonus, because not only
yeah,
because Ryan
totally.
Tedder is usually on there, obviously, and it was
Yeah,
cool how they did that. They kind of moved him to the other chair and then let another person in to kind of help. Because it really wouldn't be fair if he got to choose. He's like, I'm going to pick you as my, person I'm going to
right,
mentor. So it'd be like pretty obvious
right,
that that's the song you would want to win. But
right.
that's cool. Like, was it nerve wracking playing, up there to
Oh,
them?
bro, so nerve wracking. I was nervous pretty much as soon as I committed to going on the episode and like going through the whole thing. I was nervous from that um until I got to the dressing room after the final episode, the final shoot. I was nervous about crying on camera. I was nervous about saying something stupid. You know, you just or just screwing up my lyrics or singing terribly or like whatever. I got up every morning at 4 a.m. to practice and do vocal warm ups in my car, and like I was so nervous, but I used my nerves to prepare. you know, I put it all into just like repeating the lyrics, doing vocal warm-ups, like, you know, I was watching you know, shows with people who do great interviews before the show too, just to like try to absorb being able to interview well on my toes, because you know, you're doing a lot of interviews and it's just a lot. It moves super quickly and it's a huge production. I'd never been a part of anything like that, so it was super overwhelming for sure.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, and
Yeah,
then like you said, they're they're gonna air whatever they think is gonna be the best suit for whatever narrative they want to tell. So it's like if you say something that you're like, oh man, why'd I say that? They might use that and be like, oh, so, you
totally.
know, it's not
Yeah,
like you can
totally,
go, hey, can you not use that take? Like I feel dumb or whatever. The
totally.
producer is gonna be like, we're definitely using that
Yeah,
take.
sorry, you signed the contracts. Whatever we catch on camera is what's
Right.
going on. Yeah, it's their job to put on a great show. So and I knew that going into it. So, but the thing is with Songland, more so than you know historically some other shows, they're not there to roast the contestants. They're really there to
Exactly.
promote. They're really there to give songwriters a boost, like what they did for me. It's about the songs, and it's not about roasting any of the contestants. Which, you know, I didn't totally know if that was the case because it was season one,
Mhm.
but that was the impression that I got, and the show lived up to that. It really was about the songs and just trying to show people the magical moments in a writing session when a song goes from what if we do this? This could be kind of cool to whoa, that's like that could be like a hit record, you know.
Mhm.
And those moments do happen, and getting to show people what that feels like is really cool.
I totally agree with you. It's not like a reality show where they're like, okay, we want to show the worst part of JT right
Right,
now. You know, it's like they want to kind of
right,
like bring you along the ride with like the songwriting process and how they choose a hit and what makes a hit record. And it's really for
totally,
people that, you know, want to write songs or interested in that. So I think that I
totally.
totally agree with you. Well, from there, I'm sure that helped. You said it gave you a little boost. Did you have, were you releasing songs under, you know, JT Roach as your solo project at this point as well?
Yeah, I think I had been putting out music on that project for like a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, probably about
Hmm.
a year and a half. On that, um, just as JT Roach, like my folk songs and all that. And actually, before the show aired, was my first big electronic collaborations with Potions with Said the Sky and Slander, which turned out to be a huge thing for my year as
Hmm.
well. I don't think I understood quite how big of a deal for my career that was, and but looking back, that was a huge moment too, because the electronic music lane that has opened up for me has been just so much fun.
With that, were you able to, when you say that it was a big moment, were you able to get more cuts or just more eyes on you? Like, what was the, you
I
know,
think I think
reward?
more eyes on me, and just you know, I've been able to collaborate with some big electronic artists, and it's really helped me grow my fan base. And I feel like I'm doing this thing now where I can release, or I am releasing singer songwriter, folk, kind of left of center stuff that I've always done, but I'm also doing a lot of really exciting electronic music collaborations, and Potions was kind of the gateway to doing all those, and to getting respect in that community as somebody who can write those kinds of records, which
Hmm.
I love writing. So it's been interesting, and it's been really exciting to be a part of that electronic community.
Hmm. With like the going ahead to like the pandemic and when that all happened, did that, how did that directly kind of affect you aside from, you know, being stuck inside and you can't see anybody and that, but I mean, like career wise, was that like a big blow to you, or did it, you know, create more time and space for you to write, or were you, you know, influenced? I know there's a lot of questions here, but I'm just curious to where you were when that all happened and what was the result. I know
Yeah, of
you've
course,
released some records over, obviously you have new songs out and you released songs over the course of 2020.
of course. Yeah, I think the biggest way that it affected me, because I wasn't touring a lot at that point, like a lot of music, a lot of artists and bands,
Uh-huh.
or DJs, and I know a lot of my friends were hit hard by not being able to tour. But you know, I've been a studio rat since I got out here, and I'm always in the studio writing new music. But I haven't been able to be until the last, like, couple months, I hadn't been able to be in the studio with other people, um, doing in-person collaborations. We've been doing collaborations on Zoom, and it's just not the same. It's, you can get it done, but like, it's tough to being in a room with a couple other brilliant creatives who you can bounce ideas off of and just fly around with.
Uh-huh.
And it's also inspiring to just be in a great new studio environment. And for over a year, like so many other people, I've been working from home, in the same place, in the same routine every day, which I'm super grateful for. And I'm grateful to have a studio, and to be able to write and record and produce and pitch my own records that I'm writing by myself, which is what I've done. I really, um, I took, um, the change up, to my life as an opportunity to focus on something different, which was electronic music. And I'd write a lot of strip demos like I used to do, and I pitched a lot of electronic records, and I wrote, as I'm finishing now, I'm finishing my own album that I wrote during the pandemic. But I really wrote two albums, because the first album's worth of stuff, I pitched all those records, and those records are coming out with some big electronic artists over the next few months here. So,
That's
that turned out to be a good move.
uh-huh.
Hopefully, I mean, it's looking like it will be.
Sure.
Yeah.
When you were writing those songs over the course of, the past year and a half, did you know what songs you wanted to pitch and which songs you were going to keep for your own project?
Right.
Is it hard to shift like your mindset, or do you know like this is going to definitely be a JT Roach song? Like I'm going to sit down and write it.
Right. It's a case by case thing.
Okay.
I think it can be really tough. Sometimes we'll pitch a record, and at the last minute I'll be like, oh man, this feels like a record that I want for myself, or I won't quite feel the direction that the production goes, or you know um or sometimes I think a song is an artist song for me, and then after sitting with it for a bit, I'm like, this would be a much better and bigger record if the production was on steroids and sounded like a big electronic record as opposed to an intimate acoustic record. um so it changes. I think sitting with demos for a little bit and letting it marinate and listening to them and discussing with your team, and playing them for people who you trust is a good way to get a feel for what feels like you, and what feels like a collab or a pitch record. You know, but I always try to stay open-minded, and ultimately I just want the music to get out there and for people to enjoy it. That's the point of all this. So I try not to overthink it too much. But I will say I've discovered that I think what sets aside songs that I want to release as main artist songs for me is songs that I can sit down and play on guitar and perform
Hmm.
acoustically, and have it be captivating stripped like that, either on guitar or piano, because I do want to do shows where I'm just playing stripped stripped sets and still be able to, carry the emotion of the song.
Hmm. And you have the newest song you have out is "Crazy While We're Young." Uh,
Yep.
and we're like, is that going to be on the new record, or like, what are you looking at as far as like you said you have a whole album worth of stuff? Are you already putting out songs that are going to be on this record, or is that going to be a whole new project coming out?
That's going to be a whole new project coming out. Crazy While We're Young. I love that record. I put that out with Crystal Skies.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote that with my friend Collier, who's got an amazing artist project, Colyer. Go check him out. He's a rock star. Wrote that with him and my friend Rob Prasad, who is an amazing writer producer. But yeah, the record, the like album that I'm putting together now is all brand new songs, and it's kind of all existing in the same space. It's a singer songwriter stripped acoustic, kind of left of center, um, vibe, kind of like I've done historically on my own solo records.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say I've added more electronic elements to them. Basically, I got some synths and have incorporated that into the production more. So it is like, singer songwriter with some electronic elements as well.
That's cool. That kind of sums up your career in a sense too, right? I
Yeah,
mean, singer songwriter, and then you got some EDM and electronic cuts, and there you go. That's awesome.
totally. Yeah, it's it's I've gone back and forth about you know, whether I should just go full on with being the feature guy who just does all electronic features, because that um has been going well, but I just feel strongly that my stripped solo stuff is a story that I want to tell, and those records are important to me. So I'm still figuring out how to tell both those stories simultaneously, but you know, hopefully I can figure it out. And I think people are open-minded enough, just given that most people are just kind of saving single songs and creating their own playlists anyway.
Sure.
And I think that what they get captivated by is the songs themselves. So I'm just trying to write the best records that I can.
I totally agree with that. I think that music is in a totally different place than it was, 15 years ago. You couldn't Beyonce and Green Day. I mean, now it's like everybody likes whatever it is, and you can see those artists and like how they curate even, a Coachella lineup versus how they did, 15 years ago. And
Totally.
just seeing like certain people as a headliner alongside, it'll be like Tool and, Megan Thee Stallion. It's like, you're just like totally opposite, but it all works and everyone's a fan of everything now, and you don't have to kind of be in one lane. So people could like an electronic record you do, a singer-songwriter record, I don't think it really even matters anymore.
Yeah, I do think that's the case. So it will be cool to put out a project that feels like it's all part of one space and one kind of sonic territory. Um, and I'm really excited to. I'm really focused on that right now, and really excited to do that because I have a lot of great collaborations in the electronic space coming up, and I want to make sure that I can complement that with what I sound like when I'm solo as well, so people kind of get a feel for what is different about my project. That's important to me.
I like it. What about live shows? I mean, stuff's opening up now. You
Yeah,
feel
no,
like are you gonna go out and perform anytime soon, or what are you thinking?
yeah, yeah. I'm sure I will. I don't have anything on the books right now other than some exciting, like I'm going to be performing with some electronic acts later this year at some exciting venues. I can't announce that yet, but
Uh-huh.
super excited about that. And yeah, I think as I finish this collection, this album that I'm working on, I'm going to dig into like performing them live, like practicing them on a guitar and piano, figuring out how I want to play them live. I think doing acoustic shows and then doing some with a stripped minimal band, I think would be my first steps to just navigating the songs and figuring out how I want to play them and connecting with them. And I would imagine I'll be doing that like later this summer, probably.
I love it. I can't wait. That's so cool.
Awesome.
I do have one more question for you, and thank you so much, JT, for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I super appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. I want to know, I know I kind of asked this question earlier, but maybe I can get an answer from you again. If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Advice for aspiring artists. So not just songwriters, just
Anyone, yeah.
all
Or
artists.
songwriters, however you want to answer
Yeah.
it. It's open-ended. It's up to you.
I would say give your permission to write bad ideas. And by that I mean early on, just create a lot, because you'll figure out your style and you'll find your voice or your brand, or what sets you apart and what makes you different and what your thing is. You gotta just vomit ideas for a long time before you figure out who you are and what you sound like and what you look like and what it feels like to consume your art. And I think you got to give yourself permission to experiment and to write some bad ideas in pursuit of the special ones, and the special ones will come up. So be patient with yourself, be playful, have fun, and enjoy the process. That would be my advice.
Bring me back word.